What happens when someone believes their family name places them above the law? When arrogance meets entitlement, justice is inevitably tested. This is exactly what happened one chilly November morning in Providence, Rhode Island, when a young man, the son of the city's police chief, assaulted a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran in broad daylight, an act so brazen it stunned the community. Derek Cole, 32, had long believed that his father, Thomas Cole, who had dedicated decades to the Providence Police Department, could shield him from any consequences. That belief carried him into the courtroom of Judge Frank Caprio with an air of invincibility. But on that fateful day, Derek's assumption that his father's badge could protect him would collide with a system rooted in accountability and fairness. What unfolded in that courtroom would become one of the most talked about moments in Providence's legal history, a story of justice, conscience, and the painful choices sometimes demanded of even the most devoted fathers. The courtroom was tense before the case even began. Robert Martinez, a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran and the victim of the attack, sat quietly in the gallery, supporting a broken wrist in a cast. He wore the cap marking his service in Vietnam, a silent testament to his sacrifices for his country. Meanwhile, Derek Cole entered, dressed in an expensive suit and a designer watch glinting under the courtroom lights, wearing that familiar smirk, the same expression he had used to intimidate bystanders days earlier when he confronted Martinez. 3 days prior, the incident had unfolded in Roger Williams Park. Martinez, enjoying a peaceful walk with his dog, had been nearly struck by Derek's speeding BMW. When Martinez raised a hand to signal him to slow down, Derek stopped, exited the vehicle, and confronted the elderly veteran. Witnesses reported that he shoved Martinez to the ground, causing him to strike his head on the pavement. By the time bystanders approached, Derek arrogantly boasted, "Do you know who I am? My father is the police chief. Call the cops, I dare you." Then, without remorse, he drove off, leaving Martinez bleeding and injured. The veteran suffered a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and a fractured wrist, requiring 2 nights in Rhode Island hospital. Surveillance footage captured the entire incident, which quickly went viral, prompting public outrage and demands for accountability. Now, just days later, Derek was standing in front of Judge Caprio, seemingly unbothered by the gravity of his actions. Judge Caprio, 76 years old and with decades of experience on the bench, had presided over thousands of cases. Yet, something about this one carried a weight that transcended the ordinary. The courtroom was packed with journalists, concerned citizens, veteran advocacy groups, and observers who had followed Judge Caprio's career. Among them, unknown to Derek, sat Police Chief Thomas Cole in civilian clothes. He had not informed his son he would be attending, a decision that would soon force him to confront a harrowing choice between loyalty to family and the principles he had upheld throughout his life. At 130 a.m., the bailiff called the case, the State of Rhode Island versus Derek Michael Cole, charged with assault and battery on an elderly person. Derek entered with the confidence of someone who believed he was untouchable. His demeanor exuded annoyance, not remorse. Behind him, his attorney, Marcus Richardson, a high-profile defense lawyer known for representing wealthy clients, flanked him, ready to argue for dismissal or minimal consequence. As Derek passed the row where Martinez was seated, he offered no acknowledgement, no glance, no word, no sign of contrition. Judge Caprio, reading the case file and viewing the security footage, let his eyes meet the young man's. His expression, usually warm and empathetic, hardened. He had made up his mind Derek would be held accountable, and the lesson would be unmissable. "Mr. Cole," Judge Caprio began, his voice steady yet firm, "you are charged with assault and battery on an elderly person, specifically on Mr. Robert Martinez, a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran. How do you plead?" Derek's lawyer quickly interjected, "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. We believe there has been a case of mistaken identity." Judge Caprio held up a hand, addressing the lawyer with quiet authority. "Counselor, I asked your client, not you." "Mr. Cole, do you have a voice?" Adjusting his jacket and flashing the same arrogant smirk, Derek replied, "Not guilty, Your Honor. This whole thing is ridiculous." The word hung in the air like a challenge, a blatant dismissal of the suffering he had caused. Judge Caprio removed his glasses slowly, a signature gesture signaling that he was about to deliver a reality check. "Ridiculous? he repeated, his voice calm but icy. Mr. Cole, I have reviewed the security footage, the hospital reports, and the photographs of Mr. Martinez's injuries. You are dismissing this case as ridiculous. The courtroom went silent. Even those accustomed to courtroom dramas could feel the weight of the moment. Derek's father, seated in the back, watched as the consequences of his son's arrogance collided with the impartiality of justice. In that tense atmosphere, it became clear that this was not just a trial of an individual. It was a test of principle, a confrontation between entitlement and accountability, and a moment that would challenge the very notion of family loyalty against moral responsibility. In that single courtroom, on that cold November morning, Judge Frank Caprio reminded everyone present and the world watching that justice, when pursued with courage and integrity, does not bow to power or privilege, and that sometimes the hardest choices a parent can make are those that uphold what is right over what is comfortable. Derek glanced at his lawyer, who was frantically signaling him to stay quiet, but his ego would not allow him to back down. Your Honor, with all due respect, Derek began, and the entire courtroom immediately knew what was coming. Whenever someone starts a sentence that way, disrespect usually follows, and Derek did not disappoint. This is being blown out of proportion, he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. Some old guy got in my way. I barely touched him, and now I'm being dragged into court like a criminal. A collective gasp rose from the gallery. Did he just call a Vietnam veteran some old guy? Did he really say he barely touched him, when the man had spent 2 nights in the hospital with broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and a concussion? Judge Caprio set down his glasses carefully, a small but deliberate gesture. His jaw tightened. For anyone who watches, caught in Providence, this was the unmistakable look. The look Judge Caprio gives when his patience has reached its limit and justice is about to be served. Mr. Cole, Judge Caprio began, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. Before we proceed, I want to understand something. Do you know who Mr. Martinez is? Derek shrugged casually. Some guy who was in my way, he said. The disrespect in the room was palpable. Robert Martinez, seated in the gallery, remained stoic. His quiet dignity radiated the poise of a lifetime of service and sacrifice. But the fellow veterans present in the courtroom were visibly outraged, their anger barely contained. Judge Caprio slowly rose from his bench, a rare move that immediately signaled the courtroom that something significant was about to happen. He walked toward the front, directly addressing the elderly veteran. Mr. Martinez, would you please stand and tell Mr. Cole who you are? Martinez slowly rose, supporting himself with his good arm, his presence commanding respect without a word. Your Honor, my name is Robert Martinez, he began. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1968 to 1971. I completed 2 tours in Vietnam and was awarded both the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star for valor. I am a retired Providence firefighter and have lived in this city for 50 years. And 3 days ago, this man, he gestured toward Derek without looking at him, assaulted me for no reason other than I asked him to slow down in a public park. The courtroom was utterly silent. Judge Caprio nodded respectfully to Martinez as he returned to his seat. Turning back to Derek, the judge's gaze bore into him. Mr. Cole, do you understand what you just heard? He asked. You assaulted a decorated combat veteran, a man who risked his life for this country, a man who spent 30 years running into burning buildings to save others, and you called him some old guy who got in your way. Derek's smirk began to fade, though arrogance still clung to his face. Your Honor, I didn't know he was a veteran. How was I supposed to know? He replied defensively. Judge Caprio's response was immediate and scathing. Mr. Cole, it shouldn't matter if he's a veteran or not. Assault is assault. But the fact that you think it would only matter if you knew his service record tells me everything I need to know about your character. The courtroom held its collective breath. Even the young attendees felt the weight of Caprio's words. Here was a man, older, wiser, and unwavering in principle, delivering a lesson not just to Derek, but to everyone who witnessed entitlement go unchecked. Derek's lawyer attempted to intervene, trying to salvage the situation. Your Honor, my client is young and misspoke. He made a poor choice of words, but the evidence will show. Judge Caprio held up a hand, cutting him off. Evidence, he asked sharply. Counselor, I've seen the evidence. In fact, let's watch it together." The court clerk queued up the security footage. Silence fell over the room as the video played. Derek's BMW sped through the park, nearly striking Martinez. The veteran raised his hand to signal Derek to slow down. Derek slammed on his brakes, stormed out of the vehicle, and shoved the 70-year-old to the ground. The video captured Derek standing over Martinez, pointing and shouting before casually returning to his car and driving away. The assault was undeniable. When the video ended, Judge Caprio turned to Derek. "Still think this is ridiculous, Mr. Cole?" Derek's face had gone pale. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but the toxic combination of privilege and arrogance that had carried Derek this far refused to let him fully concede. The courtroom remained tense, the atmosphere thick with the gravity of what had just been revealed. Derek's disrespect, once so brazen, was now confronted with undeniable truth. With the dignity of a veteran and the unwavering authority of Judge Caprio, it was a moment that transcended the specifics of the case. It was a lesson in accountability, in respect for those who came before us, and in the principle that no one, no matter their wealth or connections, is above the law. "Your Honor," Derek says, his voice no longer steady, the bravado finally beginning to crack. "I was having a bad day. I just gotten some bad news. I wasn't thinking clearly." Judge Caprio narrows his eyes unimpressed. "A bad day, Mr. Cole," he repeats slowly. "I've been on this bench for over 30 years. I've seen people who lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost their children stand where you're standing now. And do you know what they don't do? They don't assault elderly veterans because they're having a bad day." The words land hard. Judge Caprio steps down from the bench and walks closer, deliberately closing the physical distance between himself and Derek. The courtroom is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "Let me tell you what I think happened, Mr. Cole," the judge continues. "I think you've spent your entire life believing you're special. I think your father's position as police chief has shielded you from consequences. I think you've never truly been held accountable for your actions. And I think you walked into my courtroom today fully expecting that pattern to continue." Derek opens his mouth to interrupt, but Judge Caprio raises a hand. "I'm not finished," he says firmly. "I've dealt with people like you before. People who believe their last name, their family's power, or their money makes them untouchable. But here's what you're about to learn. In my courtroom, none of that matters. What matters is the law. What matters is justice. And what matters is treating every human being with dignity and respect." Then something unexpected happens. Judge Caprio pauses. He looks toward the back of the courtroom and says words that make Derek's blood run cold. "Chief Cole," the judge calls out, "would you please come forward?" The entire courtroom turns as one. From the back row, a man slowly rises. Police Chief Thomas Cole has been sitting there the entire time, unseen, unheard, watching everything unfold. He heard every word his son said. He saw the arrogance, the lack of remorse, the disrespect, and the look on his face isn't anger. It's heartbreak. Derek spins around, panic replacing confidence. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Chief Cole begins walking down the center aisle, each step heavy with the weight of 35 years in law enforcement. He's in his late 50s, gray at the temples, dressed simply in a button-down shirt and slacks. No badge. Just a father watching his son unravel everything he thought he had taught him. Judge Caprio addresses him with genuine respect. "Chief Cole, thank you for being here. I know this must be incredibly difficult." Chief Cole stands at attention, his training evident in his posture. "Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to be present." Derek is visibly shaken now. His attorney looks confused. The gallery leans forward. Everyone senses something historic is unfolding. "Chief," Judge Caprio continues, "your son seems to believe that your position will protect him from the consequences of his actions. He's implied multiple times that because you oversee law enforcement in this city, he's somehow above accountability. I'd like to give you the opportunity to address that belief." The courtroom holds its collective breath. This is the moment. A father must choose between shielding his son and standing by the principles he has dedicated his life to. Chief Cole takes a deep breath. When he speaks, his voice is steady but emotion runs just beneath the surface. "Your Honor, my son is wrong," he says. "He has always been wrong about that." He continues, "I've spent 35 years serving this city. I've arrested drug dealers, murderers, and corrupt officials. I've put my life on the line to protect people I'll never meet again. And not once, not a single time, have I ever believed that my badge gave me or my family the right to break the law. Derek tries to speak. Dad, The chief raises his hand. The authority in that gesture silences his son instantly. Derek, be quiet. You've said enough. Turning back to Judge Caprio, he continues, I watched the security footage the day after the incident. I saw exactly what my son did to Mr. Martinez. I've read the hospital reports. I know what happened. His voice cracks slightly. I'm here today not as Police Chief Cole, but as Thomas Cole, a father who failed to teach his son the most important lessons: respect, humility, and accountability. The emotion finally breaks through. I thought I taught him right from wrong. I thought I showed him what it means to serve others, to protect the vulnerable, to treat every person with dignity. But somewhere along the way I failed. He gestures toward Derek. That failure is standing right here. Derek's face collapses. For the first time, tears well in his eyes. Dad, please. Chief Cole turns to him, his voice firm but full of love. Derek, I love you. You're my son, and that will never change. But love doesn't mean protecting you from the consequences of your actions. Love means holding you accountable so you can become the man you're supposed to be. He looks back at Judge Caprio. Your Honor, whatever sentence you believe is appropriate, you have my full support. My son assaulted a decorated veteran. He showed no remorse. He disrespected this court and everything I've stood for my entire career. He pauses, then adds quietly but firmly, he deserves to face the full weight of the law, and I will not interfere. In fact, if I could, I would ask you to be even more severe, because he needs to learn this lesson now, before he hurts someone else. The courtroom is silent. Justice is no longer just being decided. It is being affirmed. The courtroom erupts in whispers, murmurs spreading like wildfire. This is unprecedented. A police chief in open court publicly asking a judge to hold his own son accountable. Derek sits frozen, tears streaming down his face. The bravado that carried him this far completely shattered. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. He begins, his voice trembling. Chief Thomas Cole's expression hardens. Yet beneath it is heartbreak. Derek, do you know what I did yesterday? He asks, his tone steady but loaded with meaning. Derek shakes his head, unable to respond. I went to Mr. Martinez's home. I apologized to him on your behalf. The chief continues, gesturing subtly to the 70-year-old veteran seated in the gallery. Even though I know that cannot undo what you did, I looked him in the eye and told him that your actions do not reflect the values of this police department or this family. The courtroom is silent as Chief Cole pauses, letting the weight of his words settle in. And do you know what he said to me? He continues. Derek shakes his head again, tears streaking down his cheeks. He said, Chief, your son needs help, not protection. Help, and he's right. You don't need me to bail you out. You need to face what you've done and change. Judge Caprio, who has been watching with quiet intensity, leans forward slightly. His 3 decades on the bench have honed his ability to read a room, and his face shows visible emotion. When he speaks, his voice carries the calm authority of someone who has seen humanity at its best and worst. Chief Cole, I want to thank you for your courage today, he says. What you've done standing here, putting justice above your natural instinct to protect your child, takes more strength than most people will ever understand. Derek swallows, unable to speak, as Judge Caprio turns to him. Or Mr. Cole, do you understand what just happened here? Your father, a man who could have used his influence to make this disappear, chose instead to uphold the law. He chose to honor Mr. Martinez. He chose to honor the badge he's worn for 35 years. That young man is integrity. Derek chokes back sobs. Your Honor, I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. Judge Caprio nods slowly. That's the first honest thing you've said since you walked into this courtroom. But sorry isn't enough, Mr. Cole. Actions have consequences. The atmosphere tightens as the courtroom leans in, every eye on the unfolding moment. Judge Caprio continues, his tone measured but firm. Derek Michael Cole, I find you guilty of assault and battery on an elderly person. This is a serious crime, made more serious by your complete lack of remorse when you first appeared before me. He pauses, letting the words resonate. Here is your sentence. You will serve 90 days in the Providence County Correctional Facility. You will complete 200 hours of community service, specifically working with elderly veterans at the VA hospital. You will attend anger management counseling for 1 year, and you will write a formal letter of apology to Mr. Martinez to be read in this courtroom, followed by a face-to-face meeting where you will apologize personally. Derek nods, his head bowed, accepting the gravity of the sentence. Judge Caprio isn't finished. You will also create a video apology to be posted on the Providence Police Department's social media accounts. In it, you will explain what you did, why it was wrong, and what you're doing to make amends. The judge's eyes meet Chief Cole's. Your father has agreed to this because transparency is the best disinfectant for arrogance. Furthermore, after you complete your sentence, you will speak to recruits at the Providence Police Academy about privilege, accountability, and what happens when someone believes they are above the law. Your father will arrange this. You will share your story not to humiliate you, but to prevent other young people from making the same mistakes. Chief Cole stands, his voice firm yet filled with emotion. Your Honor, I want to add something. Derek will also be moving out of my house. He's 32 years old. He's been living under my roof, my protection, under my name. That ends today. He needs to learn to stand on his own, support himself, and understand that privilege is earned, not inherited. Derek looks at his father, devastated. Dad, it's time, Chief Cole says, his voice breaking slightly. Time for you to grow up. Judge Caprio turns to Robert Martinez. Mr. Martinez, do you have anything you'd like to say? The veteran rises slowly, supporting himself with his good arm. Your Honor, he begins, his voice calm but resolute. I don't want revenge. I just want this young man to understand that every person he meets deserves respect. Age, rank, position, none of that matters. We're all human beings trying to live our lives with dignity. If he learns that lesson, this experience will have been worth it. A hush falls over the courtroom, the weight of Martinez's words resonating with every person present. Derek bows his head, absorbing the gravity of his actions, the accountability he must now face, and the opportunity he's been given to transform his life. In that moment, justice in Providence transcends punishment. It becomes a lesson in responsibility, integrity, and the courage it takes to do what is right, even when it hurts the ones you love most. Here stands a man who endured assault, hospitalization, and public disrespect, yet responds not with anger, but with forgiveness and wisdom. Robert Martinez, the 70-year-old Vietnam veteran, rises as a symbol of courage and grace. Judge Frank Caprio addresses Derek Cole one final time, his voice steady and full of the authority earned from decades on the bench. Mr. Cole, he begins, you heard Mr. Martinez. A man you assaulted is showing you more grace than you deserve. I suggest you spend your time in custody thinking about that. Thinking about the kind of man you want to be. Thinking about whether you want to continue being the person who walked into this courtroom today, or if you want to become someone your father can be proud of. The gavel comes down, signaling the official close of the proceedings, yet the room feels suspended in tension. As the officers approach to take Derek into custody, Chief Thomas Cole steps forward, confronting the gravity of the moment. He stands face to face with his son. For a long, silent moment, they simply look at each other, the weight of heartbreak and accountability hanging in the air. Then, in a gesture that moves the entire courtroom, the chief embraces Derek tightly. I love you, Chief Cole whispers, loud enough for nearby onlookers to hear. But I love you enough to let you face this. You'll get through it. And when you do, you'll be better. You'll become the man I know you can be. Derek sobs into his father's shoulder. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I know, son, the chief replies quietly. Now prove it. Officers gently lead Derek away, and Chief Cole remains standing, tears streaming down his face, watching his son disappear through the courtroom doors. This is what real love looks like. Not shielding someone from consequences, but supporting them through the consequences they must face. Judge Caprio approaches Chief Cole, extending his hand. The two men shake, a mutual acknowledgement of the courage and integrity displayed that day. You did the right thing, Judge Caprio says softly. Chief Cole nods, emotion still raw. Doesn't make it hurt any less, he admits. No, the judge agrees. But it makes it worth it. Before the courtroom empties, Judge Caprio addresses everyone present one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, what you witnessed today is not just about one case. It's about the choices we all face when someone we love does wrong. Do we enable them, protect them, make excuses for them? Or do we love them enough to hold them accountable? He sweeps his gaze across the room. Chief Cole could have used his influence to make this go away. Instead, he chose justice. He chose Mr. Martinez. He chose the values he spent his life upholding. That is courage. That is integrity. That is what real leadership looks like. The courtroom erupts in applause. Tears stream down faces. Veterans salute Chief Cole. Robert Martinez slowly approaches the chief and extends his good hand. "Your son is lucky to have a father like you," he says. Chief Cole shakes his hand, visibly moved. "Mr. Martinez, I'm sorry for what he did to you," he responds. Martinez says firmly, "And when he does, he'll make you proud. I can see it already." 6 months later, Derek Cole emerges from the Providence County Correctional Facility a changed man. The arrogance and entitlement that once defined him are replaced with humility and purpose. He has lost weight, gained perspective, and embraced accountability. His 200 hours of service at the VA hospital did not end with his sentence. They became a lifelong commitment to helping veterans and understanding the sacrifices of others. Derek's personal apology to Robert Martinez becomes a turning point for both men. The meeting, described as profoundly healing, transforms a relationship that began in violence into one rooted in mentorship and mutual respect. Martinez teaches Derek the values of service, sacrifice, and true strength. Derek's video apology, shared publicly, goes viral, viewed by millions across the country, demonstrating the power of accountability and redemption. Young people see firsthand what happens when privilege is confronted by justice and what true transformation demands. Chief Cole attends each of Derek's anger management sessions, not out of obligation, but out of a desire to witness his son's genuine change. The father-son relationship, once fractured, slowly rebuilds on honesty, respect, and accountability. The young man who once arrogantly claimed, "My dad runs this town," now works as an advocate for veterans, using his story to educate others about privilege, responsibility, and redemption. Judge Frank Caprio's decision that day went far beyond punishment. It saved a life, healed a family, and demonstrated that sometimes the most loving action is refusing to protect someone from the consequences they need to face. If this story moved you, share it. Honor the courage it takes to choose justice over comfort. Respect those who have served, and those who protect the values that sustain society. Subscribe for more stories that prove compassion and accountability can coexist. Remember Judge Caprio's words, real love isn't protecting people from consequences. It's supporting them through those consequences so they can grow. That is the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio. That is the courage of Chief Thomas Cole. That is the grace of Robert Martinez. Justice served, lessons learned, lives transformed.